Can you hear me now? Hello everyone, thank you for coming tonight. Welcome to McNair's Cove in Mulgrave. We're going to get started with our candidates debate for the constituency of Guysborough-Tracadie. My name is Susan Fox and I'm here with the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce, and we've partnered with the Guysborough Board of Trade for this debate tonight, and we'd like to thank 1015 The Hawk for their support. Can everyone hear me? There's some chairs if you guys want to come in and sit, and we ask that there's no placards for any of the parties in the audience tonight. We asked that the questions be submitted in advance, so we won't have any questions from the floor. There was an overwhelming response for questions, and we did our best to take the main burning questions from the responses that we had to fit into the time span tonight. Please, we ask no disruptions from the audience, from heckling or of any sort, and if that does happen, we will have to ask you to leave. The event was supposed to be live streamed, but what we are going to do is upload it to our Facebook page once this is finished this evening. Thank you again to 1015 The Hawk, the Guysborough Board of Trade for partnering with us on this tonight, and thank you to Adam Cook for moderating for us. So I'm going to hand it off to Adam, and he will introduce our candidates. Thank them for coming. Without them, we wouldn't have this debate. The Green Party could not make it this evening. They were asked to attend, but these gentlemen have come, and we're interested to hear what they have to say. So thank you very much, and Adam, I'll hand it off to you.
All right, thank you very much. Susan Fox from the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce, and I have to say good evening, first of all, to Mulgrave. What a beautiful night to be out here at McNair's Cove Park. Wonderful to have you all here, and especially great to have three of our candidates for the riding of Guysborough-Tracadie. This is a big riding, and it's going to be a big night because we're going to be tackling a whole lot of different issues pertaining to just about every aspect of life in Guysborough-Tracadie, and we're very happy to be able to hear from the three candidates that are available tonight to be able to share their thoughts with us. Just want to let you folks know what the format is going to be. We're going to have three opening statements. They're going to take 2 minutes each, and when we ask the questions, we have a predetermined order for each of the opening statements, but also for the actual asking of the questions. Candidates are going to get 1 minute each to answer each question that we're given. Then there will be 1 minute of open debate between the three candidates. We do ask the candidates to be respectful to both each other and to the audience here, because we want everybody to be able to hear what distinguishes the three of you. I have to tell you, and you guys have probably all heard this on the campaign trail, no phrase connected to Nova Scotia politics bothers me more than the phrase, they're all the same. No, you're not all the same. Your parties are not all the same, and your positions are not all the same. And I think by the end of the night, we are going to know very, very certainly that each of you and each of your parties brings different ideas and different strategies to the game. And I know I, for one, am looking forward to it. Our audience here at McNair's Cove Park is looking forward to it. And our audience watching at home on Facebook, it is going to be time delayed, so you're not going to get this live. We don't have enough data for that, but they are going to be watching on Facebook, and they're going to want to hear what each of you has to say. Just a little reminder in terms of the time. I do stick carefully to the 1 minute allotment. So, at the 30-second mark of that 1 minute, a yellow card is going up, and at the 10-second mark, a pink card is going up, and I will call time at 1 minute, just to make sure that we're able to keep the evening moving along. All right, so we're clear as mud. We're all ready for a night of great conversation and great debate that will hopefully help everybody decide how to mark their X on August the 17th. So, we begin with opening statements. We have determined this order for the opening statements. We begin with the Liberal candidate for Guysborough-Tracadie, that is Lloyd Hines. Lloyd, begin your opening statement if you would. 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I understood there were 3 minutes for the opening statement.
3?
That's the information that we had.
Okay. We will go with 3.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by thanking you all for attending tonight's debate. Thank you to the organizers, the Guysborough Area Board of Trade, and the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce. Chambers of Commerce and Boards of Trade play a crucial role in our communities, making sure that the voice of business is heard in our communities. And for that, I really want to thank the chambers for organizing this debate. On August 17th, voters in Guysborough-Tracadie will have their opportunity to shape the development of their communities for the next 4 years. Elections are critical events for communities because they are asked to make a strong decision about who can best represent their interests to our provincial government in Halifax. What that translates into is who can best ensure that we in Guysborough-Tracadie get our fair share of what government money and services are available. So that is what you, the voter, must consider. Which of the 3 people before you this evening can work effectively in government to get money to support services in our communities, whether it's health, education, municipal services, or housing for our people. I am sure you expect me to say that that person is me, and you're correct. I have been delivering for the riding for 8 years, and I am asking you to let me continue. Let's take this community, for example. Just up the street is a temporary bridge that was installed earlier than it was planned for, saving dozens of jobs on the wharf connected with the clam boats. And I see the clam boats are in tonight. The new bridge has been designed and is ready for tender. And at Alls Cove, a traffic study has been completed. Speed feedback signs are up, and work has begun on a permanent fix for the intersection of the 344 and the 104. I was able to work with our federal partners to increase the funding for the town's new sewer treatment plant, reducing the town's share by $1.5 million and making it affordable for the residents who carry a huge burden, as all taxpayers in Nova Scotia do. George Freer's group received $32,000. $83,000 went into Harbour Busher recently for the playground replacement. And these are meaningful things, small numbers, not counting, for instance, the 1.6 that went into the 344 repair. So receiving your fair share is not a given. You have to fight for it. You have to be there. You have to work with your colleagues. You have to work with the senior civil servants.
That's time, Mr. Hines. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We now go to our second opening statement. That comes from the candidate for the Progressive Conservative Party, Greg Morrow. Greg, if you will.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, everyone, for coming. I'll admit it's very different being on this side of things. I've moderated the last 2 debates for this riding. It definitely still takes some getting used to. I've been a broadcaster for close to a quarter century, and news director at The Hawk for the past 12 years. I feel like I already have a pretty good grasp on the issues and concerns in this area. But I've learned a lot as I knocked on thousands of doors and talked to a lot of people the last 2 months. We've had some great engaging conversations, even if we didn't necessarily agree. I'm happy to be here tonight to tell you more about our party's solutions for the future of our province and how we can work together in Guysborough-Tracadie. Thank you.
All right, there we go. And now we go to the last opening statement of the evening. That comes from Matt Stickland of the New Democrats. Matt, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Matt Stickland, and I'm your New Democrat candidate for this provincial election. Almost said federal there, slipped up a little bit too early in my bio. We'll get into policies a little bit during the debate, I think, so I'm just going to let you know a little bit more about me. I was initially born in England and then immigrated to Canada in 1984, and then I got posted here in 2011. I know some people like to make an issue of the fact that, hey, if you're not from somewhere, you can't necessarily represent it that well. And I'd just like to let everyone know that being born in England didn't have any impact on my ability to serve this country in the Navy, which I did for 10 years. I served on the HMCS Charlottetown, and we deployed to Libya, and then I just transferred to subs, became a submariner, and deployed down into the Pacific before getting medically released and joining Mr. Morrow in the trade of journalism. I covered municipal politics in the HRM for the past year, and that kind of fizzled out right before the writ dropped, which freed me up to do this. And so here I am today. So yes, hello, my name is Matt Stickland.
right, thank you very much, Matt Stickland, and thanks to each and every one of you for your opening statements. We're now going to move on to the questions, and some of these questions were submitted by individual people and individual groups. They're going to be covering a variety of topics. Our first question deals with the issue of pandemic recovery and economic development. The pandemic has caused many small businesses, the backbone of the Nova Scotia economy, to suffer. Many of the hardest hit workers went unsupported and are still finding ways to get their act together to be able to get things back on the go. But some of the hardest hit sectors of the business community didn't receive support until funding announcements were made just prior to the election call. How does your party intend to better support entrepreneurs as they face a lengthy recovery? So, we have chosen Lloyd Hines of the Liberal Party to give the first answer. 1 minute on pandemic recovery and economic development. Lloyd Hines.
Thank you, Adam. Well, our government is moving towards a collective recovery, which will provide an equitable, sustainable, that will support business and make life more affordable, create jobs, and provide high-quality health care services across the whole spectrum. One of the things that we are doing is continuing our highway rebuilding program. There's just a recent announcement that the next move is to continue the twinning from Taylor's Road through to the Causeway, and we've got all kinds of other issues that are helping agriculture and fisheries, the creative economy, tourism, and making it easier to do business in Nova Scotia.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hines. Greg Morrow of the Conservative Party, over to you on pandemic recovery and economic development.
Thank you, Adam. We can't have a healthy economy if we don't have healthy people. That's why the PC team is laser focused on fixing the healthcare system with our Hope for Health, universal mental health care, and dignity for seniors. But to get the economy going, we have some innovative ideas, including the Better Paycheck Guarantee. Nova Scotia Loyal, it's a rewards program that rewards people for shopping local and buying local. Nova Scotians love their points, and this is one way that we're going to help boost the economy. More opportunity for skilled trades, no tax for people under 30 in the trades on their first $50,000. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Greg Morrow. On to you, Matt Strickland of the New Democrats, pandemic recovery and economic development in rural areas.
This might be a long night if it's Stickland. Yeah, common mistake out here. I get it all the time. No worries. So the NDP, one of the big things that we like to focus on that the other parties maybe don't, is that businesses don't succeed if they don't have customers. And people can't afford to spend their money if they're spending all their money on rent or groceries or giving it all to Nova Scotia Power. So what the New Democrats want to do is we want to make sure that the workers are empowered and they have better wages so that they can spend money in their local businesses. So, maybe earn some points, possibly. So we want to make sure that there's a $15 minimum wage for all workers in the province. We want to make sure that workers aren't choosing between staying home sick and losing their wages or going into work sick. We want to make sure people have paid sick days. We want to make sure that the workers of this province have enough money to spend their money in the small businesses instead of giving it to their landlords and doing nothing for the economy.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Stickland. There we go, I'll get it right once. Okay, now we move to 1 minute open debate. Anybody can jump here at any time. Do try to avoid talking over each other, and the 1 minute debate begins now on pandemic recovery and economic development. Jump in, anybody.
Thank you very much, Adam. I'd like to point out the $228 million pandemic emergency fund that we implemented about a year ago, which was spent throughout the province. In this riding, we were able to secure $1 million for Sherbrooke Village for badly needed repairs. We were able to replace the Clam Harbour Bridge earlier than we had planned on, and we were able to fix the temporary bridge here in Mulgrave out of that fund also. So our recovery from the pandemic began before the pandemic got to where it's at now.
Matt Stickland, any response?
No, he's just listing policies.
Okay. Last word to you, Greg Morrow.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, all right. We will then move on to our next question. And we have a number of topics here. Just a reminder to our audience, both those watching at home and those that are here at McNair's Cove Park, we are going to endeavor to wrap this up at 8 o'clock this evening. And given the good, concise answers so far, we're off to a good start. So let's move on to affordable and accessible housing. Rural municipal units are continuing to face significant financial burdens in trying to grow their tax base, care for our most vulnerable citizens, and protect the environment. How will your government, if your party is elected, create innovative solutions to enable us to achieve these goals, such as investing in water and sewer infrastructure when opportunities for projects like affordable housing and other private sector developments arise? This time we begin with Greg Morrow from the PC Party. Greg, if you will.
Thank you, Adam. Too many people were struggling pre-COVID, and certainly COVID has made things much more challenging for too many of our friends and neighbors. Any situation involving housing and rent is certainly amongst the most stressful. For so long, the conversation is centered around Halifax and housing. The problem now exists right across the province, and this is something that I've been hearing across the campaign trail for the last number of weeks. The current government didn't have a plan. They didn't have a plan for you to access primary health care, housing, or good-paying jobs. Our platform addresses all of these issues. Certainly we welcome discussion with Commission members, looking at things like modernizing regulations and working more closely with municipalities to implement changes on the quickest possible timelines. We're going to look at excess and surplus Crown land, and we're going to work together with developers and nonprofit organizations to help address these problems.
All right, thank you very much, Greg Morrow. We move to Matt Stickland of the New Democrats, accessible and affordable housing.
One of the hardest things about campaigning is, like Mr. Morrow said, when you knock on doors and people are like, oh, hey, yeah, my landlord wanted to cash in on the real estate market. Now I'm being evicted and I can't find anywhere affordable. And can you help me? And the answer is no, not unless I win. And then even then, if I'm not in the majority, maybe not. However, one of the things the NDP wants to do is make sure that the roof over your head is a constant bill and it doesn't go up unexpectedly and it stays relatively low. So we want to make sure that rent control is implemented, permanent rent control is implemented, and we want to look at other ways that we can house people, co-ops, things of that nature, as well as giving municipalities more power to actually implement affordable housing, which they can't currently do under the Municipalities Act.
Thank you, Matt. Lloyd Hines of the Liberal Party, 1 minute on accessible and affordable housing.
Well, I often say that affordable housing is really an oxymoron. Anybody out there that thinks that housing is affordable anywhere in Nova Scotia? Certainly the pandemic has put tremendous pressure on the housing market, because what's happening, and I see it, and I'm sure my colleagues do, folks are moving back to rural Nova Scotia and soaking up the empty properties that were there that were affordable for people, and they're paying preposterous prices for them, and it's making it more difficult for people in the housing market to get along. What a Liberal government is doing to protect renters and addresses affordable housing, we're limiting rent increases to no more than 2%, making it so landlords will not be able to get a eviction order for renovations, creating the Nova Scotia Affordable Housing Commission, and providing more than 2,500 rental supplements.
All right, and that lines up perfectly to your 1 minute, Mr. Hines. Thank you. All right, 1 minute of open debate on accessible and affordable housing. This can begin with any candidate. Your 1 minute starts now.
There's something like 17 recommendations in the Commission report, and they didn't shy away from the complexity or the challenge or sell us on a flawed quick fix like rent control. For us, there are two issues here. We need to build more housing units, and everyone has a role to play here: government, private sector, not-for-profits. Secondly, there are too many lower and middle income families remain priced out of the market. Again, let's work together with all these groups and come to a solution.
I'd also like to talk a little bit, if I could, about the Liberal policy that they did do to make rent more affordable, called the Affordable Renters Act, which was free cash to landlords, no strings attached, as long as they implemented some form of environmental renovations. And there was no guarantees that after they did these renovations, they weren't allowed to renovate people. This was in the 2020 budget right before the pandemic, just free cash to landlords. But hey, the budget was balanced, so I guess it's a win.
10 seconds, Mr. Hines.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mr. Morrow, for complimenting our decision to set the Affordable Housing Commission up. We poured $25 million immediately into that group, once it was established, and followed every one of their recommendations.
That's time, Mr. Hines. Thank you. All right. Good discussion on affordable and accessible housing, gentlemen. Thank you very much. We are moving on now to a constituent question. This is one of the questions that was submitted to the Chamber of Commerce by a group of citizens. This one submitted by the St. Mary's River Association and multiple private citizens. A lot of people wanted to know these answers. This is a bit of a two-parter, so please listen carefully. Do you support Atlantic Gold's proposed open-pit gold mine on Cochrane Hill in the St. Mary's municipality? And will you support and advocate for protection of Archibald Lake? We begin the debate this time around. 1 minute on this topic from Matt Stickland of the New Democratic Party. Matt.
No and yes, respectively. Look, resource extraction is really complicated because we all need things to live, and these things are made out of our natural resources. It's not a surprise to everyone. Everybody knows this. But at the same time, we also only have one planet. And spending a lot of time on a submarine really gives you the understanding of, hey, if this thing fails, we're kind of in trouble. So I'm not against resource extraction. I'm not against gold mining. I am against gold mining if it comes to the detriment of the planet, which this project right now currently does. So no to the gold mining right now, yes to protecting the lake.
All right. We go to the Liberal candidate, Lloyd Hines. Your thoughts on this issue, sir?
Well, for starters, the in-service date for the Cochrane Hill mine is 2026. So this is a topic for a future election. They haven't filed their EA yet. How people can start forming opinions that are valid without having the science around is I'm not one of those people. I have to wait and see what the science says on the project. I was very happy to include Archibald Lake in the list of protected areas when it was brought forward, and I really don't know why it's held up. We've already voted on it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hines. And for our last bit of the debate portion of this question, we go to Greg Morrow of the Progressive Conservatives. Greg.
No and yes. I would agree with my NDP colleague or counterpart here that, we're not against projects, but it has to make sense from a jobs point of view and an environmental point of view. And one of the best things about going across the riding and meeting people is to see the passion of the people in the St. Mary's River and in that area. And they want their river protected. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to represent our constituents.
All right. Thank you very much, Greg Morrow. Now we go to 1 minute of open debate on the Atlantic Gold question and the proposed protection of Archibald Lake. We begin with any candidate that wants to jump in. 1 minute of open debate begins right now.
I agree completely with Mr. Morrow. We are here to represent our constituents, and in my door knocking, there is no unanimity in St. Mary's over what should happen. People are looking for jobs. They're looking for ways to keep their people home, to keep their children home. If you were in Moose River today, you would see 300 people working at the Moose River mine. The lowest paid salary there is $25 an hour, right? So it's not a one-sided argument, and in order to represent your people, you're obligated to look at all sides of the matter.
I never said that there was unanimity, but in terms of the people that I've spoke to, the vast majority are against this project.
Yeah, to be honest, I've heard the same thing. And I mean, yeah, well-paying jobs are good, and there's plenty of other venues that governments can use instead of just saying, hey, let's blow up part of the earth and destroy it a little bit just because people are going to get paid well. Like, there are better things we can do.
And are these jobs local jobs?
And just because
97% of the people at Moose River are
We're
Nova
not
Scotians.
talking about Moose River. We're
That's
talking
time,
about
gentlemen.
Archibald
Thank
Lake.
you. Thank you. All right, so some enthusiastic and energetic debate on that subject. Let's see how we do with the next topic that we're going to be dealing with. This dealing with immigration in Guysborough-Tracadie. Immigration fuels the economy. It's essential for economic growth and pandemic recovery. When immigrants join the labor force, they increase the productive capacity of the economy and raise the GDP, the gross domestic product. How does your party plan to encourage greater numbers of immigrants and to reduce barriers that immigrants face in living and working in Nova Scotia? 1 minute of debate begins, and we begin with the candidate for the Liberal Party, Lloyd Hines. Lloyd.
Well, immigration is a way for us to continue to grow our population, and it's a founding pillar of our plan for continuing growth and prosperity. Across Nova Scotia, and particularly in the fishing industry in Southwest Nova, there's a huge number of immigrants who have been imported. Actually, in St. Mary's, there were a lot of people working in the smoking, salmon smoking operation over there. In the Atlantic Immigration Program, which we've implemented over the last 2 years, we've managed to increase the number of immigrants who land in Nova Scotia from 2,538 in 2013 to over 7,500 per year in 2019. So we've worked very hard at immigration. We think that it's a partial solution for our way out of this dilemma. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lloyd. We shift to PC candidate Greg Morrow. 1 minute on immigration. Greg.
The province is left at the mercy of the federal government for immigration programs and the ability to encourage our fair share of immigration, but we are prepared to advance an immigration policy that is bold, decentralized, and is focused on immigration as an economic development tool. Despite recent declarations that the population of Nova Scotia is stabilizing or growing, a closer look actually reveals that the trend is being observed is one that's too concentrated, like many things in the Halifax area. Under the PC government, we will negotiate for an increase in our federal immigration numbers to 1.5% of our population, being about 15,000 individuals per year.
All right. Thank you, Greg Morrow. And the final 1 minute debate portion being allocated on immigration to Matt Stickland of the NDP. Matt.
So I did a fair amount of homework prepping for this. I was not expecting an immigration question. Being from England, though, I'm obviously very pro-immigration. But I will say the NDP policies, by and large, tend to try and put people first and their lived experiences first. And one of the biggest barriers that people have when they move to Nova Scotia or move to another country where they don't speak the language, they're not familiar with the customs, is it's really hard to fit in. It's really hard to find a community. Speaking as someone who was posted here in 2011 trying to find a regular hockey team, it is really hard to break into a friend group because most of the friend groups here are kind of established in like grade 6 and just kind of like kept going. Anyways, having supports for people who immigrate to this country to make sure that they can, integrate into the community, make sure they have help with the language, make sure they understand, how to apply for benefits, how to, go to the DMV or Access Nova Scotia. A lot of people just struggle with the basic things that they just don't have wherever they're coming from. So making that transition a lot easier.
All right, thank you very much, Max Stickland. And now we go to 1 minute of open debate on the topic of immigration. Your 1 minute starts now.
Our government has a plan to commit $10.3 million over the next 4 years to ensure that skilled immigrants and international graduates stay in Nova Scotia once they've entered the workforce. We have a retention rate in Nova Scotia of 73% of the people who immigrate here. So we're losing quite a significant portion of them, that they're not sticking around. They migrate into other communities where there's a bigger concentration, or they look for better employment. We want to put a stop to that.
So why haven't you done it in the past 8 years?
We would like to implement policies that will make sure that that doesn't continue.
Anybody else on immigration? Okay. All right, we'll move on to our next topic. Thank you very much. Good discussion there on the topic of immigration. Moving on next in our Guysborough-Tracadie debate, rural internet and connectivity. COVID-19 has highlighted the need for greater connectivity in rural areas of the province. How will your party ensure continued focus on infrastructure that will meet the needs in rural communities now and in the future? 1 minute of individual candidate debate on rural internet, and we begin with Greg Morrow of the Progressive Conservatives. Greg.
Well, one of the biggest topics that came up during the nomination process for the party was rural internet and people struggling with homeschooling and working from home because it happened during the third wave lockdown. Nearly 50,000 households without access to the internet. This has been a failure of will, failure of vision, and a failure of commitment. For Nova Scotia to capitalize on global opportunities and leverage our second-to-none work-life balance, we need to equip all communities with the best internet service so we can compete from anywhere.
All right, thank you very much, Greg Morrow. And continuing on in the discussion on rural internet connectivity, we go to Matt Stickland of the NDP. Matt.
So I was a federal candidate in 2019, and during the 2019 campaign, the federal Liberals promised, "Hey, we're gonna get the CRTC to make sure that the big telecoms provide internet and do it for cheap." Hasn't happened. Probably not going to happen. They asked and they said no. So I think it's time we start looking for better solutions, and the better solutions start right at home. There is absolutely no reason municipalities or the province can't run its own broadband internet, can't run its own phone network. They do that in Saskatchewan, and they pay the lowest cell phone bill prices anywhere because the government isn't really that interested in making money, and the private companies need to compete. So the NDP would want to make sure that municipalities have the appropriate funding, have the appropriate support to make their own broadband internet, to make sure everyone who lives in whatever municipality can get cheap, fast, reliable internet from the city or municipality or county they live.
All right, thank you very much, Matt Stickland. And we now give 1 minute of time on rural internet connectivity to Lloyd Hines of the Liberal Party. Lloyd.
Thank you very much, Adam. And I do agree with Greg in terms of the utility of the internet. What I say to people is it's like having a refrigerator in your house. Used to be in the 50s. You need to have internet today. The pandemic did outline that issue. Here's what's going on. Here's the truth. This government put $193 million aside to bring the rural participation in the internet to 99%. Today in Guysborough-Tracadie, our homes are being hooked up to high-speed internet as we speak. And we have a plan to drive it into every corner of this riding by 2023. And if my colleagues don't know that, I'm very happy to give you that information.
All right, there we are. That's Lloyd Hines, the initial statement on rural internet connectivity. We'll now go to 1 minute of open debate, which should be of special interest to those folks watching at home on Facebook. So we begin. Anybody can jump in at any time. 1 minute on rural internet connectivity, beginning now.
I mean, just a little bit of a sidebar, but updating the benefits or the oh my goodness, sorry, I just completely went blank there.
Well, I didn't, and so what I told you about the internet is what is true. What's going to happen here? What we're doing, and we're doing that. And I'll tell you where the money came from. There was an audit of the Sable royalties that were to come to Nova Scotia, and we got a windfall of $229 million, and I was part of the government that set aside $193 million to put rural broadband high speed in our communities, and you are seeing that unroll now. If you were in Giants Lake tonight, you could be watching Netflix.
Updating the income assistance to make sure that it's actually modern, so that we're not helping people pay for cable TV to help them with their job hunt, helping them pay with cell phone bills and pay for cell phone bills and internet as well.
Okay, that's time. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We move on now to healthcare, and specifically access to healthcare. It's a critical quality of life that impacts the retention and attraction of people, jobs, and business investment all over Nova Scotia. Presently, there are more than 69,000 Nova Scotians without access to a family doctor. Nova Scotia Health is recruiting many physicians to our province. However, many newer graduates and locum physicians are not signing contracts for full-time family physician positions. So, if elected as MLA on August the 17th, how might you propose to resolve this challenge? We begin with 1 minute of debate and response from Matt Stickland of the NDP. Matt.
Yeah, healthcare in this province is extremely challenging because it was founded, the way we set it up, it relies on having a rural economy that is strong and very populous, which isn't as true as it was before. So we're trying to fix it now kind of by patchwork, and it's not really working. So the NDP does have a long kind of 10-year plan for that, but also more immediately, like when you're on subs or when you're on ship, you don't have a doctor. You have a physician's assistant, and they can do everything from emergency medicine to general GP stuff. There's no reason we can't use LPNs, RNs, and PAs to help fill the shortage that we're trying to ask doctors to do. Because right now we're asking doctors to do everything, and they don't need to do everything all the time. There are other people that share the skill set that can help share that workload. And the other thing too is we're going to open up the seats at Dow so we can actually train more doctors, because the seats are limited right now.
All right, thank you very much, Matt Stickland. We shift over to the Liberal candidate, Lloyd Hines. 1 minute on attracting and retaining doctors. Lloyd.
Thank you very much. Our plan for quality health care is smart, targeted, and responsible. We want to provide better care for Nova Scotians, and investing in doctor recruitment is very important, training and supporting our healthcare workforce, and improving access to mental health. I'm so happy that the mental health has come to the fore as something that has been ignored for too long and has occupied too small a spot of our budget, and that is changing. We're building on the historic investments. As Minister of Transportation Infrastructure Renewal, I was doing the almost $4 billion investment in bricks and mortar that we're putting together in Nova Scotia to modernize our facilities, to get rid of the old VG building, so that we can attract doctors who come here to work in facilities that are decent. And that's going to be a big consideration for our area. And our plan responds to the changing needs of our populace.
All right, thank you very much, Lloyd Hines. We move now to Greg Morrow of the Progressive Conservatives. Greg, 1 minute on attracting and retaining physicians.
Healthcare is the number one issue in this provincial election campaign. It's the number one issue that we hear on the doorstep. So we're the only party that's been upfront about the cost and equally clear about our willingness to invest whatever it takes to get the job done, because Nova Scotians are worth it. We've been upfront. It's going to cost money. It's going to take time. We're in a crisis. It's not going to be fixed overnight. So we're the only ones that are seriously talking about it. It took 10 days for the Liberals to say anything about healthcare. 10 days into the campaign.
All right, and there we are. Greg Morrow, thank you. And now we have 1 minute of open debate on accessing health care in Nova Scotia, and in particular in Guysborough-Tracadie. Anybody can jump in starting right now.
There's one part of healthcare that tends to be overlooked that's relatively near and dear to my heart, which is veterans affairs, veterans issues. What a lot of people don't realize is when we're in, we get very good health care, but as soon as we're out, we're at the mercy of whatever province we're in. And in Nova Scotia, it's very hard for veterans to access care. When we get medically released, we need to fill out a bunch of paperwork and forms for VAC, and if we can find a doctor, the doctor frequently says, oh, I don't want to take you because VAC requires so much paperwork. We can't do anything with, it's too much time, don't want to do it. So veterans face a huge problem trying to find healthcare in this province. And what the NDP wants to do is make sure that through the OSI clinic run by the Nova Scotia Health Authority, make sure there's a physician there who can help veterans get the care they need to access VAC services.
14 seconds. Anybody
We're
else?
actually up to 71,000 Nova Scotians without a family doctor. The health minister said before the election that there is no problem recruiting doctors. We had an ER closure at Guysborough on the weekend. All 4 quad counties had ambulance shortages. 17
time,
of
Mr.
the
Morrow.
18 counties
That's-
were in
that's
COVID
time.
critical.
Okay, that's our time. Thank you. 1 minute of open debate on the accessibility of health care in rural Nova Scotia. Now we have another constituent question for our candidates here this evening, and this is a constituent question about highway development, specifically the intersection at the Trans-Canada Highway in Ald's Cove with the highway leading into Mulgrave is considered by many to be a safety concern. The Premier has recently announced twinning of the Trans-Canada Highway in this area right to the Canso Causeway. What will you do as MLA to ensure that the safety issues at this junction are addressed? So, 60 seconds of a statement on this, and we begin with this particular topic with the Liberal candidate, Lloyd Hines. Lloyd.
Thank you very much, Adam. Well, the relocation of the Irving Big Stop, approximately 300 meters to the west from where it was, created a situation that unfortunately went unseen, and that really brought a conflict out between left-turning traffic into the Big Stop and the exit at 344. So what we have done, we conducted a traffic study on the issue, and we have installed, I'm sure many of you have seen, the speed feedback signs that are there going both ways, coming and going. That would be a traffic control issue. And we have repainted the markings, and I see they're ready to be repainted again. And we're also going to run the lights from the causeway up into that area, so it will provide better visibility. But we do have a bigger plan that's in design that will eliminate that problem.
That's time, Mr. Hines. Thank you. All right, over to Greg Morrow of the Progressive Conservatives. Same question on dealing with highway safety in Ald's Cove. Greg.
One of the benefits of covering Mulgrave Town Council is hearing the issues directly from town councillors and residents who show up at the meetings. And council is frustrated by this. They've reached out to the minister, to the MLA, and they haven't heard back. All they understand is that a draft report was done and it's sitting on a desk, and nothing is being done. The speed signs aren't working. The speed signs don't stop trucks from pulling into the Irving Causeway Big Stop. This is an ongoing issue that the town feels they're being left without a voice on.
All right, thank you, Greg Morrow, and getting some answers on this from the NDP candidate Matt Stickland on highway safety in Ald's Cove. 1 minute beginning now, Matt.
The municipalities not getting answers from the provincial government is a tale I think as old as time. But no, it's not safe. It's just, it needs to be redesigned, and it needs to be redesigned and rebuilt very quickly because it's not safe. And if people are at risk, you got to make them safe. Like that's all there is to it. And I just want to say, ma'am, the wind caught it perfectly, and that was very funny.
All right, he's catching things that I'm not catching. There we are, right on. All right, thank you very much, Matt Stickland. All right, we'll go to 60 seconds of open debate on highway safety in Ald's Cove. Anybody can jump in at any time. Your 1 minute of open debate starts now.
News to me that I haven't been communicating with the town. The mayor's sitting right over there. We've had all kinds of conversations about Ald's Cove. It's high on my priority list.
Do conversations pave streets.
We're going to get the problem fixed. It can't happen overnight. As a matter of fact, it's currently on for the 2022 construction season. The recommendation that we're going to be following to alleviate the issue there at Ald's Cove.
No issues hearing back from the MLA?
Well, yeah, I mean, governments of all tiers like to say, oh, well, we're working on it. We're doing it as fast as we can. The answer is no, you're not. If it was a priority, you'd do it. Governments have a lot of resources. I mean, you can debate whether or not you want to prioritize for an entire province one intersection in one district, but they could if they wanted.
And that's our time, gentlemen. Thank you. Now, we move on to a new question, and this is a question about your party leaders, and short and sweet, but it will be a slightly longer answer than the question. Why is your leader the best choice to be Nova Scotia's Premier? We have 60 seconds for statements on this, and we begin with Greg Morrow of the Progressive Conservative Party. Greg.
So we've covered all levels of politics for a number of years, but provincial especially. When parties send out emails and news releases, often opposition leaders criticize, and that is their role. But after a while, you kind of start to roll your eyes and say, another critical email from the opposition. What Tim Houston has done since he became leader is introduce solutions. So every time, as opposition leader, he puts out a release criticizing the government, he says, this is what we would do better.
All right, there we are. So that's your statement on Tim Houston. Thank you very much, Greg. We go over now to Matt Stickland of the New Democrats. Matt.
So I was volunteering on a by-election for when Dave Wilson retired in Sackville there. And at what was supposed to be a victory party, turned out not to be a victory party. A pizza got knocked on the floor. Whole pizza, big tray, whole thing. And so we all turn and look, and there's Gary Burrell picking it up by himself because he was just the closest one to it. And I think the reason that Gary Burrell would make an excellent premier is because he's kind of really bad at politics. He's just too kind. He's like, it takes a lot of strength to be as compassionate as Gary is. And having been a politician as long as Gary has been, he frequently gets yelled at by his staff. They're like, you gotta stop talking about, lifting up the poor people because it doesn't poll well. And he's like, well, I don't care. They need help. It's like, they get really frustrated with him. I find it quite funny. But the short answer is he's not a very good politician, and he cares a lot, and I think that's why he would be a good premier.
All right, thank you, Matt. Over to you, Lloyd Hines of the Liberal Party. Why does your leader make the best premier choice for Nova Scotia? 60 seconds starts now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adam. I've known Ian now for 8 years, watched him in caucus, watched him become caucus chair, watched him assume a cabinet responsibility, and then another cabinet responsibility. And he was taught by the greatest teacher that you could have, and that was Stephen McNeil. And a lot of Ian's attitudes and his the way that he conducts himself are similar to what Stephen did, but not the same. He's his own man. He is calm, collected. He gathers the information. There's no real spontaneous outbursts from him, and he's just a tremendous leader, and he will make a fine premier.
All right, thank you very much, Lloyd Hines, and we reset the clock. 60 seconds of open debate between the three candidates. Anybody can jump in at any time. Why would your leader make the best premier? Start now.
I just want to go back to what Mr. Hines said about Stephen McNeil. Stephen McNeil deserves the world of credit for guiding the province through COVID-19. Make no mistake, Ian Rankin is no Stephen McNeil. Mr. Hines, who did you endorse in the Nova Scotia Liberal leadership?
Labby Casoulis.
Labby Casoulis.
That's awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was three candidates running, Randy Delory, Ian Rankin, and Labby Casoulis. So that means, unless Lloyd wants to answer who he put second, there's a 50-50 shot that he picked Ian Rankin as his third choice for Liberal leader.
I mean, that's one of the things that people, I mean, they're all the same. One of the big reasons people say that is because, you know, you have to follow who your leader is because the parties are whipped. So, I mean, the three of us are on here, we're debating and we're talking, but the truth of the matter is if you don't like the leader, you're not going to vote for us if you don't like our leader. And it's very important who the leader is. Kind of not for or against anyone, just kind of comment.
And that's our time. So thank you very much, gentlemen, on that particular topic on who would make the best premier of the three party leaders that are represented here tonight. And we actually have a couple more questions from our public. And we want to thank everybody from all the way around Guysborough-Tracadie for submitting questions, by the way. There's been a great response, and we really appreciate having your input as well, too. This is just terrific. All right, now we're going to go on to clean energy and clean technology. It's been stated as a priority of both the federal and provincial government, with aggressive targets being recently announced. Nova Scotia Power has infrastructure that will need to be updated for new energy sources. What will your party do to ensure that the cost of these upgrades is not on the backs of Nova Scotians? 1 minute statements beginning with Matt Stickland of the NDP. Matt.
I mean, what's the currency? I mean, people like to criticize the NDP. Oh, how are you going to pay for this? It's going to cost too much, this, that, and the other thing. But, like, we are paying for climate change, you and I, right now. If you're paying for more tick medication for your pet, you're paying for climate change. Like, we need to invest in infrastructure that will not damage the planet because we only have one planet and we are already paying for the effects of climate change. I mean, what does it cost? I don't know. I don't know the fully costed NDP plan for, you know, what Nova Scotia Power's renovations are going to require. But, I mean, what is too much or too little to pay to save the planet? I don't know. I don't think there's a really good answer to that. I don't really... Yeah, anyways, we need to spend what it takes because we need to save the planet. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Matt Stickland. We go with this question now to Lloyd Hines of the Liberal Party. Lloyd.
Thank you, Adam. We're sort of blessed in Nova Scotia because we have a third-party oversight. It's called the Utility and Review Board. And they're very diligent about making sure that the Power Corporation doesn't pull any fast ones on Nova Scotians. And we're watching them very close. They keep a very close eye and spend a lot of money making sure that the costs of upgrades to the system land in the right place, either with the ratepayers and more often with the shareholders. And we're very fortunate to have that. And we also have a tremendous Department of Energy who has a great relationship with the Power Corporation and with the regulator.
All right, thank you, Lloyd Hines. And now same question to Greg Morrow of the PC Party. 1 minute for you, Greg.
Yeah, I don't know what the cost is, but we do need to do better, and we do need to invest more in green energy because, as I would agree, we have to save our planet, and there's no turning back from damage that's being done.
All right, we go to 1 minute of open debate on clean technology and conversion to green technology. Anyone can begin. The 1 minute open debate starts now.
One of the most successful and cheapest methods of power generation is wind. And yeah, I can see them over there. They're turning across the way. You drive up to shore and there's 2 small turbines that the municipality owns. There's a huge wind development planned for behind Pirate Harbor that will feed that pulp mill over there and relieve the pressure on the power corporation's costs. And
Look, the elephant in the room, really, that no one likes to talk about, is that the way we live is causing climate change. And if we keep using power in the same way we're using power, it doesn't matter how clean the tech is, because the way we are living is causing climate change. So we also need to look at, yes, how we're generating power. Yes, the people who are working in coal, who don't have jobs anymore, get better jobs. But we also need to make sure that we are changing the way we live so that the power we do generate is used better.
That's time. Thank you very much. 1 minute of open discussion on clean technology. And believe it or not, we have already reached our last question of the evening. And that's quite remarkable. That shows how well the conversation's flowing up here. So let's go to this question, which is about dealing with health issues for the elderly. Specifically, here's the question. 1 in 5 Canadians live with some type of disability, and this rate increases among our senior population. This increases the need for accessibility and accessible devices such as hearing aids, eyeglasses, walkers, canes, and so on. Now, most of these aids are not covered without private health insurance. So how would your party work to reduce these accessibility barriers for vulnerable citizens? 1 minute on this topic. We begin with Greg Morrow of the Progressive Conservatives. Greg.
Yes, we released our Dignity for Seniors plan more than a year ago. It starts with 2,500 new long-term care beds, 2,000 new staff. There's also things in there like grants for seniors who want to stay in their homes, so we free up those spaces to help with things like snow removal. But these are just starting points. There's a lot of work to do. We saw what happened at Northwood. We need to do better for our seniors. Again, these are starting points. Let's start here and see what we can do, and let's work together and see what we can do to help.
All right, thank you very much, Greg Morrow. Same question to you, Matt Stickland of the NDP.
For when it comes to people in long-term care homes, we want to make sure that there are more beds, there are more private beds. We want to make sure that the CCAs are able to give 4.1 hours of care, and we want to make sure that they're paid a living wage so that people can, only work one job and not have to go to multiple different long-term care homes. But on top of that too, it is absolutely insane that we think we have universal health care, but we have eyes and teeth, which are apparently luxury bones that aren't covered by anything. It is absolutely insane to me that we think we have universal health care, but we have to pay for drugs, we have to pay for our eyes, we have to pay for our teeth, we have to pay for anything that isn't essentially emergency medicine. And the NDP wants to make sure that we actually have universal health care. If you are sick, if you are broken in some way, you get the help you need, and we all pay for it in our taxes, as opposed to just bodily medicine or emergency medicine.
All right, thank you very much, Matt Stickland. And the question now goes to the Liberal candidate, Lloyd Hines. Lloyd.
Well, Adam, one of the realities of Nova Scotia is that our demographic is skewed towards a higher percentage of elderly people. And obviously, when you get older, you're a bigger consumer of health care. We need to address that in our policies, and that's what the Liberal government is looking at doing. We are increasing our LPNs. We're increasing the seats for our practical nurse practitioners across the province. Our midwifery program is being enhanced. There's a whole myriad of healthcare improvements in our platform that will enhance our health care. There's the SANE program is being increased by $500,000 to hire additional resources.
That's time, Mr. Hines. Thank you. All right. So we get into our final open debate portion of the evening, and this is again about accessibility of health care to the elderly for specific situations. Anybody can jump in. Your 1 minute of open debate starts now.
I just want to start by harping on, sorry to pick on Mr. Hines here, consumer of healthcare. What makes the NDP fundamentally different than the other parties is can be encapsulated in that sentence: consumer of healthcare. You are not a person. You are not someone who needs help. You are a consumer. You are a client. And that's the approach that we've taken to healthcare for the past 20, 30 years, give or take. And I understand the NDP has a little bit of a patch in there where we were part of the problem. Most of those folks are gone now. But consumer of healthcare is kind of fundamentally the issue. We are treating our healthcare system as us as clients, and we're like paying for services, not people who need care. We need to fundamentally shift the way we're looking at the way we care for each other.
50 seconds. Greg Morrow, Lloyd Hines, anything?
Excuse my language. You can use whatever language you want. We still have the same problem.
All right, and there we are. And that wraps up our open debate portion, and it also wraps up our questions for our candidates that are here this evening. And we now will take some time for closing remarks. Each candidate gets 3 minutes for their closing remarks. And we are going to begin with the closing statement from the Liberal candidate for Guysborough-Tracadie, Lloyd Hines. Lloyd, if you will.
Thank you, Adam. And again, thank you all for coming out this beautiful evening. We were fortunate to be blessed with a great day to have this outside. And it's also great that it's in Mulgrave in this end of the riding. I think you've got a good chance to look at the folks who want to represent you in the next government in Halifax. And I hope that the proceedings tonight will help you make your mind up as to which direction you want to go, with the exception, of course, if you haven't already voted in the advance poll, which I think a lot of people probably have. This is a critical election for Guysborough-Tracadie. We have a boundary change that has reduced the size of the constituency after 12 years, 10 years. We were able to get the Halifax County portion out of the riding, which really made it awkward for serving so far up the shore to Aikens Brook, which is a 20-minute drive from Tangier, which is another half hour past Sheet Harbour, which is 3 hours from Guysborough, to give you an idea. So now we just go to Ecum East, and that's an improvement because we reduced our population from 10,000 voters to 7,000 voters. So you have now 1/7,000th of an MLA versus 1/10,000th of an MLA. So you've improved your position with that change, and I think that's a good change because it will enable us to focus on Guysborough-Tracadie, which is even a name that we tried to get changed because Tracadie is not in the riding. It refers to the Tracadie River, not Tracadie, the community. So it's very confusing for people, and people don't sometimes in that area know what side of the line that they're on. But I think it's good. Elections are good. We had to go because we were into this one for over 50 months almost, and there wasn't much choice about going into a summer election. People have been very accommodating, and on the doors have been very accepting and welcoming. And I want to thank everybody out there for tolerating the knocks that come at inconvenient times for people, and hope that everybody will participate in the election and we get a good turnout. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hines. And now with his closing statement, Greg Morrow, the candidate for the Progressive Conservative Party of Nova Scotia. Greg.
I don't live in Guysborough-Tracadie. I never said I did. I live 6 kilometers from the boundary. I've lived in this area my entire life with the exception of a few years in Halifax. This area means a lot to me. It is not an issue that comes up on the doorsteps. When we were in the party nomination, there was 4 candidates, just like in this race. There was 1 candidate who physically lived in the riding. I won that race with more than 50% of the vote, with 4 candidates. I have strong connections to Guysborough-Tracadie. My grandparents and mother were from Guysborough. I have family and friends in Guysborough and East Tracadie and Harbour-Bushy. My cousin is marrying a girl from Mulgrave. I'm not sure what she's thinking, but she's doing it. My friends in Guysborough. My kids play baseball in Guysborough. They have friends in Guysborough. So the issue of who's representing you, in Nova Scotia, particularly rural Nova Scotia, neighbors help neighbors. I'm 6 kilometers away. I'm not in Halifax. I'm right there if you need me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Greg Morrow. And for his closing statement, we go to Matt Stickland of the New Democratic Party. Matt.
I think Mr. Morrow is right. Neighbors do help neighbors. And when we're canvassing, I'm sure the two of you and the Green Party candidate have heard the same stories. Your neighbors are suffering. A lot of people are really, really hurting right now. Whether it's access to health care, whether it's facing eviction, whether it's facing a rent increase and then maybe facing eviction, there are a lot of people right now who are really, really struggling. And it is very hard, for me personally anyway, to hear these stories and be like, yes, I really hope I can help you. But our neighbors need help. They do need help. And right now you have a choice of what kind of help you think is best to help each other out of this pandemic, out of the healthcare crisis, out of all the issues that we are currently facing. And so you need to choose. And I personally think the NDP is the best. Obviously, I do. I'm a little biased in that regard, as you can probably tell by the sign on the front of this podium. But the NDP really cares about people. We care about helping people more than how much profit large companies can make or more than anything else. There are people in this province that are really suffering, and we want to help them. That's it. That is our entire sales pitch. All of our policies are based on trying to make sure that your neighbors, your friends, your family, maybe even you, don't struggle or suffer unnecessarily because of a weird policy choice that was made like 15 years ago, but it would be bad headlines to fix or some other silly reason like that. Like, we just need to start helping people, and we need to do it now because the time is running out for a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. And that wraps up our Guysborough-Tracadie candidates debate. We want to thank all of you for coming out and all of you for watching at home. And we want to thank these three candidates. I've said for many, many years, it is not easy to put your name on a ballot and put your neck out there to try to make your community a better place. All three of the men here tonight, and I do assume that the Green candidate, Mr. Gabriel Bruce, who wasn't able to be with us tonight, feel the same way, that it really takes a lot of courage and a lot of conviction to be able to go out and put your name on a ballot. So thanks to each and every one of you for doing that, for coming here tonight, and for sharing your views and your opinions. I have to say this has been one of the most polite exchanges of ideas and visions within the context of a political debate that I have seen since I started covering political debates roughly 30 years ago. And I am very pleased to have been your moderator this evening. Big thank you to all those who have worked so hard to make this happen. A big thank you to the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce, to the Guysborough Board of Trade, and to 101.5 The Hawk FM. And we look forward to seeing what happens on Election Day. Those of you that haven't voted, get out and vote. You have no end to the ways that you can cast your X. Make sure you mark your X, whether it's for any of these men or for the missing candidate tonight. Make sure that you mark your X on Election Day. Thank you, everybody. Good night and God bless.